Hi, a film I watched this morning that I was interested to finally get round to was Shirley, adapted by Josephine Decker, I believe, based on the book. It stars Elisabeth Moss as the author Shirley Jackson and Michael Stuhlbarg as her husband. And it's a very fictionalized story of the relationship the couple had with a young couple who come to stay with them in the, I think, early 1950s. Jackson's work is very heavily inflected by the film itself, and if you're not familiar with it, I think you're going to lose a great deal, as I did. I've never actually read any of her books, but I have seen an adaptation, actually two adaptations of her most famous book, The Haunting of Hill House. And she is, as is stated earlier in the film, the author of The Lottery, one of the great short stories of the 20th century. Um, Her stories and books tend to revolve around the entropy of enclosed systems, the way that environments sealed from the outside world rot and decay and gradually wind down or into corruption. And there's very much the tone of that in this film, where Jackson is holed up in her own house. He's agoraphobic, barely even going outside, let alone beyond the grounds, while her husband is an academic who teaches in the local university. The couple who come to stay with them is a young academic seeking to make his way, and his pregnant new wife, who is somewhat hoodwinked into becoming their housekeeper and strikes up a friendship with Shirley that seems to be hinting towards some deeper connection between the two. There's a scene late in the film that's clearly coded as a sex scene, which works rather neatly, but it's never really pushed further. What I felt disappointment in is even though the film is interesting to look at and well made, and everything in the house certainly has this patina of rot and corruption, that the main character is these two fictionalized characters, or the completely fictional characters, while Shirley Jackson isn't the protagonist in her own movie. And in fact, uh, the basis of the film is a very fictionalized version of the character. Um, in real life, she and her husband had several children. In this version, they're childless, and it just feels as though the the story has been twisted and warped to tell the story about these fictional people that we want, rather than creating fiction to match the existing facts. So, although it's a well acted film and relatively well made and has some interesting elements to it with regard to reflecting Jackson's work, there's not enough movie in this movie. There's not enough material to really justify its existence. The young husband character is particularly thin and goes for long stretches without even appearing in the movie. And overall, it's lacking about 20% to make it up to being a really worthwhile endeavor. Moss is, as I said, very good, as she's had a bit of a tear this year, but unlike The Invisible Man, this is something that you can